But a lot of times, this is all about the yin and the yang of the universe, right? So when you have major disruptive change or people creating chaos, that brings a lot of people out to try to correct that chaos and to make the changes. So there's a lot of one of the first thing that's going to happen around humanity is it's really going to cause kind of a widespread rethinking of religion worldwide. All the world's religions are going to kind of get reanalyzed. What do people know? What do they understand about the way the world was created? What is the one source, the one force that's kind of responsible for everything? So you're going to see a lot of this disclosure happen, and that's going to cause ripples through humanity and society and politics and religion. My name is Sterling. My tagline on a lot of the media we use is Sterling Psychic Medium. So welcome everybody into the video here. First time I'm chatting on this channel with Evelyn. Very nice to meet her. Okay, so the question is, based on my psychic mediumship work over, let's say, the last 30 years, what do I see going on in terms of awakening in the world? A lot of time people talk about the veil becoming very thin, but what that really means is that people are becoming more perceptive to their own groups of guides and angels. I'll talk about that in a second. But the world now, whenever I talk to my guides, and I deal with actually millions of entities on the other side, guides, angels, ascended masters, famous people from history, extraterrestrials. All of them have a very interesting theme in that we're going through a very important 3-decade reset right now, the years 2020 to 2050, where it's almost as important as the last several thousand years. So what's happening now in this 3 decades is not just, for example, full disclosure of extraterrestrials, but it's everybody's ability to connect with the other side, much the same way psychic and mediums do, and understanding how to communicate with that other dimension. So a lot of changes happening. People enlightened to those changes. Changes are like better acceptance of worldviews, LGBTQ plus, women's rights, the breakout of what we call CRISPR technology, genetic engineering, so brand new medications, so things involving Alzheimer's, cancers, a lot of these diseases for humanity to be taken care of. Big changes and really kind of a reconciliation of really what humanity is here for, and actually learning a lot from a lot of extraterrestrial species that have been here around millions of years, that have gone through all these lessons millions of years ago. They understand how to work to the higher good of their species, how to lean into science. We're going to see the advent of things like cold fusion technology, which is we'll have a lot of nuclear waste. There'll be a lot of very clean energy around. So this 3-decade reset in many areas will really turn the country around. I will tell you that the world, including the US especially, is going through a real change. I'll call it a big disruptive change. But a lot of times, this is all about the yin and the yang of the universe, right? So when you have major disruptive change or people creating chaos, that brings a lot of people out to try to correct that chaos and to make the changes. So we're seeing that in government right now. All this is now really starting to change. So sometimes I think humanity and people have to get pushed to the limits before they really stand up and make the changes. So this 3-decade reset they're in, years 2020, 2050, very important for all those changes. Okay, sure. So the question is, what sort of major significant changes are we seeing or predicting regarding the global economy coming up next year, next few years here? You're actually going to see a reset of a lot of the distribution of wealth that we haven't seen in many other decades. We're actually going to see much more of a leveling out as countries, populations rise up to what's fair for humanity. You're going to see a reset of a lot of, let's say, the very fractional percentage of individuals that have been controlling a lot of the world economy. You start to see a shift and leveling out, that more individuals are actually going to see a reasonable standard of living, a reasonable economy, access to services. You're going to start to see it worldwide. And a lot of the dictatorships around the world are going to start to get minimized. Now, this is all part of that 3-decade reset. But the next few years here, you're going to see disruption in certain countries where populations, even like in Russia, are going to stand up and say, look, enough is enough. We need to do something for the betterment of the population. We can't engage in world wars that are somewhat meaningless. And so you can see big changes here. I've also seen, and I talk about this a lot on our show, that you're going to see the downfall or the downward trajectory of the current 45 US president, as well as Russia, Putin. You're going to see a decline, both the same trajectory in both of those individuals, much the same. They're going to be moved out of the public eye and less of a force. So the question is, what do we think about the eventual realization that extraterrestrials have been around for millions of years? There'll be full disclosure coming very soon. How do we think the world and how will it affect politics and all the major areas of humanity? I talk about this all the time. Right now, I deal with a number of different species: Palladians, what they call the praying mantis, Arcturans, the Greys. They've been around for millions of years. They've actually, a couple of important points about the way extraterrestrials are working with humanity. One is that they're actually working very hard to make sure that humanity doesn't destroy itself. So, in terms of a major nuclear event, they're working very hard. They worked very hard around Chernobyl, for example, at that time. So they're still around trying to safeguard humanity. They're also working in many areas of government, not completely out in the public, so to speak, but they're working to help with health breakthroughs around genetic engineering, around what's called free energy as we get closer to cold fusion. They're working around understanding of farming and technology, education, artificial intelligence, lots of advanced supercomputing. So they're working to help humanity in a number of ways. The full disclosure that's coming is going to happen it's going to get rolled out kind of in a very segmented way. There are a lot of hybrids down here on Earth. Hybrids are essentially, if you look at kind of the biological makeup, kind of part extraterrestrial, part Homo sapien sapien. They have advanced connections with a lot of extraterrestrials who are down here helping. Initially, a lot of the world's going to get introduced to hybrids first. They'll look very much like Homo sapiens sapiens, will be more comfortable. But you'll understand that they have a greater knowledge than the average person walking around. Eventually, as individuals are introduced to Palladians and to Arcturans and a lot of the Greys, it's going to be very evident that there are things here that they can help. And there's a lot of one of the first things that's going to happen around humanity is it's really going to cause kind of a widespread rethinking of religion worldwide. All the world's religions are going to kind of get reanalyzed. What do people know? What do they understand about the way the world was created? What is the one source, the one force that's kind of responsible for everything? So you're going to see a lot of this disclosure happen, and that's going to cause ripples through humanity and society and politics and religion. The other thing is that humanity is going to understand that we are actually all really part of the same. It's almost like drops of water in the ocean. So this is where extraterrestrials understand how to get along with everybody, all their species. They don't. They actually are quite serious. They're quite they're very intentful in what they do, but they don't judge. They live in a greater space of love, not fear. This comes from millions of years of evolution. So this is going to come as a wave over humanity to start to affect change. There'll be those individuals in society that will never understand or appreciate kind of what extraterrestrials have done over millions of years, even though there's evidence. But it will cause a meaningful change in humanity and politics and certainly religion and the way we cure diseases. So it's really going to be it's a wonderful change that's coming. Okay, so the next question is, in regards to artificial intelligence, will there be significant changes in the near future regarding the use of AI in industries and healthcare, transportation, entertainment? The answer is yes to all the above. Through my entertainment industry career and still ongoing, artificial intelligence will actually going to integrate every aspect of our lives, nothing to fear. So actually, if you look at the timeline, if you look at the Akashic records, artificial intelligence, this is the time that it's going to roll out for humanity. One of the wonderful things that artificial intelligence does is it can look at trillions of assets, trillions of data points, for example, and draw conclusions or relationships that humans would never see. It's one of the basic things that artificial intelligence can do. It also will take, tasks that are just very complex for humans and make them quite simple. If you just look at, for example, the entertainment industry, generative AI now is at a point where it's really affecting the speed at which creative things can be developed. So, for example, just by using words like, I want to create a short film, 5 minutes, of a dog that discovers a bear and they're on top of the Empire State Building and they're flying around the world. A generative AI engine can create that just within a few seconds. Now, artificial intelligence is going to be going to every area. So it's already in manufacturing, warehouse distribution. Amazon is a big user, for example, of AI. Many companies are working on AI, NVIDIA, IBM, Samsung. But what's interesting is that when we get into healthcare, that's really going to be we'll call it a frame-breaking change in the healthcare industry. Because now when you pair up artificial intelligence in the near future here with advanced imaging technology, now you can look at anything within the human body. You can actually scan the human body. And because you have that AI intelligence running behind the scene, you can actually pinpoint problems that may be something coming up they may not be aware of and get ahead of it 6 or 12 months before it's a problem. It's a tremendous asset, and obviously it's involved in all aspects of transportation. So automated taxis, self-driving transportation vehicles. You're going to see drone technology, major transportation systems using drone technology to be artificially AI controlled. You're going to see a lot of air traffic, airlines using AI. So it's in every aspect of society. And yes, it will at some point become sentient. It will be able to sense and have emotion, but this is all part of the complement humanity. It is on the Akashic records. It's here, and it will continue to evolve, but it will involve every aspect of our society and in a good way. So the question is, how can we prepare for the future? How can we overcome fear for the future? Change is inevitable, and accepting change is an important part of everybody's experience. The universe, I talk about this all the time, the universe only runs on two primary energies, love and fear. And many times I use the kind of the abbreviation that fear is like false evidence appearing real. Education, leaning into knowledge is the best way to overcome fears. A lot of times I find people are fearful of things that they don't know, which is understandable, but then leaning into it, doing a little research, talking with people, that tends to reduce the amount of fear. When you lean into love, love is all about the possibility, the betterment of humanity, what's coming up for humanity. And as I understand that, people are in if you look at varying age groups across society, there are some babies that were born immediately with an iPad in their hands. So they start from that technology, where some of the older population, barely had, certainly didn't have cable or color TV. So we have a widespread. But technology is here to stay. And I find the best way to overcome fear for everybody is to educate yourself in any way that makes sense. Online articles, talking with people, going to groups that are helping. So knowledge is kind of the best way to prepare for what's coming. So a little bit about my background. Actually an executive in the entertainment industry, working around major studios, actually very active around the music industry and all forms of the entertainment industry. Still serve on the Recording Academy, work on the Grammys each year. But I would say that I've always had the gift since birth. Many of the clairs, and there are 8 clairs in total. I've had many of the clairs working, but I really used them around the entertainment industry. I was around a lot of, very phenomenal, successful, let's say, creative people that would do things automatically. And I was kind of wondering, how did you do that automatically in 5 minutes? And I'd ask some of these people, and they would say, you really want to know the truth? I have no idea. I don't know where it came from. And so I started to put two and two together around highly creative people, really have that creative connection going to the other side. So I utilized the ability that I had, both, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and primarily even claircognizance. But it wasn't until about 1992, working around the entertainment industry, I ran into a studio office, and there was a gentleman there who had all kinds of tarot cards on his wall. It's kind of interesting. He had them all framed. It was very nice. And I complimented him. I said, "Hey, that's a very nice group of tarot cards on the wall. Like, where'd you get them?" He said, "Well, I got them from a gentleman named Fred Fassett, a psychic medium in Santa Barbara, California." And I said, "Oh, how interesting." And he said, every other weekend he gets together with people up in Santa Barbara and you might enjoy it. Came home, talked to my wife, and we made plans very quickly to go up and join Fred Fassett in Santa Barbara, California. This is 1992. And upon my first meeting with Fred Fassett, he asked me, "How come you're not using your abilities more out in the open in public?" And I got taken back. He almost kind of scolded me in a funny way. And he said, "No, you really need to start using your abilities out in public." So it was really at that meeting in 1992, well over 30 years ago now, that I decided to push forward and really start to do things out in public more, helping people using the gift that I have. And it's really been a wonderful journey, and I owe a lot to my wife as well. My wife Linda, she's a real supporter and a big pusher behind the scenes, and actually, quite psychic herself. But it was really her push that said you need to do more than just using it around the entertainment industry. So that's really kind of the long and the short story, so to speak. I didn't work a lot to develop the gift. I really just started using it and kind of flipped the switch. It was really more about coming out more publicly. Uh, there's many of them. And I think it's even hard to even nail down just one. I would tell you that when I first started using the gift, I'll go all the way back to 1992, when we were driving home from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles. My wife said, "Well, this is wonderful now that this gift you're going to start using out in public. Let's like review our family. Let's see what's going on with our family, our daughter, what's happening with her future." So on about that hour, 2 hour drive home, I ended up doing like psychic mediumship work for about 2 hours in the car while I was driving. It's kind of interesting. And my wife took copious notes, and during it, we unveiled a lot of things regarding our family, who our daughter would marry, what a family would look like, where she'd live. And we found a lot of those things played out very accurately. And so that was like the first times that it kind of interconnected with the family. I should make note that normally I don't read our family, because a lot of times you know too much about your family. So you don't, it's not as good. But that was certainly a memorable experience. My wife always remember all the notes she took, um, even including where we would move, what the house would look like, what the surroundings would look like, the dogs we would have. That was kind of probably the most interesting initial experience. Beyond that, there's just been, countless numbers of experiences.
Okay.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a pleasure being with Evelyn and this wonderful channel that she's created. Thanks for everybody for joining us. For those of you to reach me, we do have a website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. I do sessions. You can find a book online tab. We also have an extensive YouTube channel, Sterling Psychic Medium. And we even have platinum memberships where we do live streams on Fridays and we do mediumship, answer a variety of questions. So it's wonderful to be with everybody out there. And also, as I mentioned before, we have podcasts available on every major podcast platform worldwide. So you can certainly find us under the easy term Sterling Psychic Medium. So thank you again, Evelyn. It's been a pleasure being with everybody. And I want to wish everybody a lot of goodwill, love, and light as you go forward.